Okay, hi everyone. This is Kim Seymour, Leadership Programs Lead for the Emerging Leader Programs. Today we are going to be providing some information that was covered at the May conference on how to be a good mentor and what you need to know about the 360 assessment. So in terms of understanding your role as mentor, some of the things that we want to ensure you walk away with from today's makeup call is how you can actually leverage the role as a mentor to develop yourself, and understanding your value as a mentor to your mentee's professional development. It's really a mutually beneficial relationship, and we'll ensure that you have some tools from the mentoring toolkit that you can leverage to ensure success in that relationship. And then we will have anyone who is not from the class of 2017 Emerging Leaders drop off. And then we will go ahead and talk a little bit more about the 360 assessment and what you need to know to go through that process during the capstone. So in terms of your role as a mentor, one of the things that we really want to stress here is that this is a position as a program mentor, not a career mentor. So your role when you want to set yourself up to be a good mentor in the Emerging Leader Program is really about guidance and sharing a point of view versus giving direction. This is especially applicable for people who may be a bit more green or junior with the company. There may be some mentors in the class of 2017 that are mentoring other emerging leaders in the class of 2018 who may actually have less experience in their career. So that's something to keep in mind as you go through this experience, that your focus is really to ensure that you're having meaningful conversations about how to maximize the mentee's value and experience in the program. However, for you all who are functioning as mentors, the idea here is that you're getting to leverage and put into practice the leadership skills that you learned throughout the Emerging Leader Program, hence why this is part of the capstone experience during the last 6 months of your program. So that being said, my caution to you is that if you are being asked to give career-specific advice, while you can certainly, as I mentioned, weigh in and provide your point of view, definitely would encourage you to refer them back to their manager, to your Emerging Leader sponsor, the HR, or someone in TMOD. Your other role as a mentor is to represent the mentoring program itself as well as the Emerging Leader Program. We expect you to advocate for the program, explain to your peers and your colleagues as a leader amongst your peers what the value is of the toolkit that we provide in the mentoring program, and also the value that you're experiencing in the Emerging Leader Program itself. It's a great way to talk it up and to get other people interested in this experience. So when preparing to meet with your mentee, it's important that you reflect ahead of time on how you think you can be most valuable to them and helpful in their experience. So some of the things that you may want to think about are, how did you feel when you started out in the Emerging Leader Program, whether that be when you were starting off with the class of 2017, or even for those mentors who are helping us out this year from the class of 16 or even earlier than that. What did you know about the program? What did you need to know that you didn't? What were you hoping to get out of it? What were you worried about? And what did you learn that you felt was most impactful for you in your experience that you would want to reinforce with your mentee? So this is really just a list of some types of questions to help you reflect on how you can generate some conversation with your mentees early on in the program, and also take this as an opportunity to start discussion about what is it that they're worried about? What do they want to focus on? And how can you be of most value to them? A couple of things that we went over at the May conference. These are from the Mentoring Toolkit, which you can locate on the Emerging Leader SharePoint site or on the Mentoring SharePoint site. But one of the tools we talked about is the trust circle. Building trust is the most important role of a mentor. And while it is up to the mentee to really drive the relationship and communicate what it is they need out of the experience, it's really up to the mentor to build that trust that enables the mentee to feel like they can be safe and vulnerable with the mentor. So to help you think about ways you can do that through your behaviors and your actions, we created this trust circle that would actually be a great tool and reminder if you wanted to even print it out and just kind of have it hanging in your work area as a reminder of some of the ways that you can do that. So the idea here is that when these 6 things are done consistently, you're going to be building credibility and trust, not just in your mentoring relationships, but really in all of your relationships. So I'll just briefly talk about each one, and then you can refer to the Mentoring Toolkit for additional information. So the first one, if you kind of go clockwise, starting at 12 o'clock, is character. Character is something that you build and prove over time, but you lose it in an instant. It's all about, are you perceived as somebody who is fair, who is respectful? Do you walk the talk? Do you keep your word? Are you reliable? Can you keep confidential information confidential? And are you genuine? Composure is about how you react or respond under stress and pressure. When somebody brings you bad news, are you able to manage your emotional responses appropriately? This is really all about poise, but also being confident and humble at the same time, so that if you reflect back on the emotional intelligence assessment you took through your program experience, you would get a sense of, do your emotions manage you, or do you manage your emotions? Competence is, do you know what you're doing and what you're talking about? I think everyone has a pretty clear understanding of competence, and we talk a lot about technical competence, but you also want to make sure that you have some leadership competence as well, which are going to come down to you relying on what you learned through the Emerging Leader Program and some of your other experiences and being able to impart that on your mentee. Courage. Leadership courage is one of our core competencies, and in this context, it's about speaking up and appropriately challenging in a respectful and professional way. Do you feel comfortable having tough conversations with folks who aren't meeting performance expectations? Are you willing to admit your own mistakes, take risks, make decisions, and be decisive? So, this is a particularly important C of the C's in the trust circle here with your mentee, especially when it comes to modeling the way. The next one is conviction. Are you passionate and positive about your work? This is a great one when we talk about setting a positive example for your mentees. Making sure that people really know what you stand for. And then compassion is how you care about people professionally and personally. One of the quotes that we use, I think even in the Leader as Coach training through the Talent Accelerated initiative, is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that really comes down to, do you listen to people? Do you have their back? Do they feel like you are someone that cares about them? So this is an overview of the trust circle. And again, there's more information about this in the toolkit. But at the end of the day, for you all as program mentors for emerging leaders, what this really means to you is, you just be humble and vulnerable with your mentees. This is an opportunity for you to gain their insights as well, and feel free to talk to them about maybe some mistakes you've made where you wish you had hindsight that they can learn from those situations, challenges you experience and how you overcome them, and being comfortable enough to really provide some solid, appreciative feedback, and being gracious and respectful during those meetings, and expecting the same out of them. One of the other tools in the mentoring toolkit is the GROW model. This is a tool that we would encourage you as mentors to use, especially early on in the relationship when you're helping the mentee identify what their career goals are, and their goals, well, in this case, specifically for the program as a program mentor, and helping them understand what it is they want to get out of the program experience and how they can go about doing those things. So I'm not going to read through the list of questions here on slide 5. And again, the GROW model is in the mentoring toolkit, but you can take a look at that when you're preparing for some of your next meetings. And then one of the other, actually the last tool we talked about during the May conference with the group is Feed Forward. So I'm not sure if maybe some people have seen this before in other training programs, but there's really 2 types of feedback that occur in most relationships. So one is appreciative feedback, and that's information about a person or their behavior that is effective and enables them to create desired results. And then developmental feed forward is information about a behavior that detracts from an individual's effectiveness. So basically, if you think about it in terms of our world, appreciative feedback is letting somebody know that they did something well. And then developmental feed forward is recommendations for how somebody can improve in the future. So a model of that might be, what I really appreciate about your approach was X, Y, Z, and I think you can be more impactful going forward when you do A, B, C. And there is, again, more on this in the mentoring toolkit. During the May conference, we had the class of 2017 emerging leaders get in pairs and actually practice using the GROW model, the appreciative feedback and developmental feed forward concepts in conjunction with the trust circle. These are some of the types of questions that are here on slide 7 that we had them practice with, based on what we have heard in the past from mentees or people who are new to the program. So, for example, your mentee could come to you and say things like, I think I know what I want to do for my capstone, but I'm not really sure if it's what they're looking for. How do I know? What experiential development activities would be best for me to pursue? Or what do you think? What did you do? So as you're having those types of conversations, you're being asked these questions. Those models and tools that we talked about are some of the key ways that you can be most effective right out the gate in being a good mentor to your mentee. So that actually covers everything we wanted to go over in terms of the how to be a good mentor component. I would encourage you to please go check out that mentoring toolkit. Obviously, I cannot say it enough. And also the Emerging Leader Program Guide for additional details, but wanted to ensure everyone had the same information that we covered with the rest of the group at the May conference, so you can all be the most effective program mentors you can be. So I'm going to pause here and open it up to the group before we move on to the 360 assessment discussion, and ask if there are any comments or questions about the mentoring component of the Emerging Leader Program. Okay, hearing none. So this next part for the 360 assessment is going to be for the class of 2017 only. So for those of you from the class of 2016 or prior who are on this call specifically about the mentoring component, feel free to drop off, and we'll keep just the class of 2017 on, who is going to be going through the 360 assessment as part of their capstone experience between now and the end of the year. Okay, so a 360 assessment is a tool for receiving anonymous feedback from, could be your boss, your peers, direct reports, or anyone else that you work with on a day-to-day basis. You come up with a really cool report. It compiles all of the results and provides a summary of how you're perceived by these multiple sources. We use this as a very powerful tool, not just for employee growth and development, but a really good way to kind of expand and get a good reading on whether your self-perception is the same as the way that others perceive you. So why do we collect this feedback? I think I just chatted a little bit about that, but it gives you an opportunity to get feedback from multiple sources, which also gives you an opportunity to get a sense of well-rounded feedback. So whether it's from direct reports, from your bosses, from customers, and then you also provide your own assessment of yourself, and you can get an index report that allows you to compare how you perceive yourself to how others are perceiving you. This is a really good tool that we use at the end of the Emerging Leader program as you've gone through the experience from understanding the business and your role in it, to leadership of self, to leadership of others. It's kind of the last checkpoint for us and for you to get a gauge on how you've applied those learnings. You may have gone through the Emotional Intelligence Assessment, MBTI, other assessments that help you build your own self-awareness. And this is now an opportunity for you to check that against how others are perceiving you. So a few notes about the guiding principles with the 360 assessment. So again, it is anonymous when you're getting up to 20 responses from people you've selected as your raters. The only person whose feedback is not anonymous is your boss. The assessment is aligned to Exelon's core competencies, and they do measure perceptions that can be adjusted with time and with focus. So the idea is that if this is your first time taking a 360 assessment, that you work on some of the feedback that you've been provided, and you may have an opportunity later on in your career to go back and take a 360 again, where the idea is that you've been able to shift the perception that your working team has about you. The report is owned by the employee, so it's up to you to decide what you share from that and what you keep close. Obviously, the more you share with the people who are in your toolbox of supporters, the more they'll be enabled to help you. And then talent management and organizational development will provide the debrief for you and any coaching that may be necessary. So getting into how to set up your 360 assessment, the first step for you is going to be selecting the right raters. This is really important because this is how you determine the type of feedback that you're going to get. So you want to make sure that you have really good variety and super high quality people that you've been asked to provide you with feedback. And keep in mind too, this isn't a test of what's going to be an outcome of a performance rating. You definitely don't want to be going after people who only think very positively of you. You want to make sure that you're seeking out people that are going to give you that diversified lens. So for your boss, the first category, you can actually indicate as many as 3 bosses, and that feedback will remain separate. So in addition to your direct manager, you may want to think about obtaining feedback from a prior manager, a matrix manager, maybe somebody that is the boss of another work group that you work with often, or even somebody who was a project lead for a long-term project that you supported. For the category of direct reports, if you don't have any currently, maybe you have had in the past, or you've had a project team and can leverage some of those individuals on there as direct reports. They may have some insights about your leadership capabilities that you may not otherwise get in a different format. Here's, it's recommended that you select about 4 to 6 people you work with on a regular basis. And then others would be a category where you may want to look at any internal customers that you support and interact with on a regular basis, people that you have matrix relationships with, or really anyone that can provide a perspective on how you work with people outside of your team. One key thing I do want to point out here is that other than the boss category, when you put people into the other categories of direct report, peer, or other, they don't know what category you put them in. So if you're feeling any awkwardness about deciding that a peer maybe could be valuable to put in the direct report category, they won't know. So don't worry about that. Just try and think about, again, the most high quality feedback that you'll be able to get from those individuals. Okay, so a couple of common questions that come up that I just want to make sure we're really clear on. Is there a limit to the number of raters or bosses a person can ask? At least one boss and 4 to 6 individuals from each of the relationship categories. So you have to have at least one boss, but again, you can have up to 3. And then total number of raters for all categories has to be no more than 20. However, to make sure that you're really going to get, again, a quality report, you want to try and make sure that you're identifying as close to 20 as possible, keeping in mind that not everyone may respond. So if you submit a 360 rater list of 20 people, you may only get 12 to 15 people to respond. Is the list of raters shared with the manager? What we would suggest is that you work with your manager and TMOD to identify a list of raters before you submit them to the system. That will ensure that if there's anyone that maybe you didn't think of that may have an alternate perspective, that your manager and TMOD can kind of help steer you in the right direction. And then the last one is, can employees find out who provided a specific rating or comment? No, as we said before, the feedback report is anonymous, it's confidential. We encourage you to share the results with your manager or maybe even your mentor if you have one, but ultimately the report is owned by you and you will not be able to dig into who provided what comments because the feedback is anonymous. Steps for setting up your 360 assessment. So again, you'll want to identify your list of raters and meet with TMOD and your manager to review those. TMOD will register you for your 360 assessment in eTalent. We have not quite switched over to using ePeopleTalent for that yet, which does not affect your experience with the 360 assessment. You will then receive an email asking you to submit your list of raters. It's strongly recommended that you send each of those individuals an email first or let them know some way that you've been asking them or you are asking them for their participation in this assessment so that they are aware of that when they receive the invitation to submit their feedback for you. You will also complete your own self-assessment. And you want to consider sending any reminders to the raters you've selected. And then before you receive your results, we are actually going to be holding it hostage. So when your report is ready, TMOD will not schedule the debrief with you until you have identified the final date and venue for your capstone presentation. Once you have that and you have submitted that date and that venue into the tracker on the Emerging Leaders SharePoint site, then you will be able to reach out to your TMOD specialist and set up time for that debrief to get the results. Okay, so this is just a recap of those next steps for how you want to initiate your 360 assessment. And in the back of the stack, we have a list of who our TMOD contacts are in the East and who our TMOD contacts are in the West. At this point, I don't have any additional information to share, so I will open it up to the group to see if there are any questions about the 360 assessment process. Okay, hearing none, this is the conclusion of the makeup call for how to be a good mentor and an overview of the 360 assessment process. Please contact me, Kim Seymour, Programs Lead, if you have any questions. Thank you.